This is the Tom Anderson Show, broadcasting live from the KVNT studios, 7 to 9 a.m., Monday through Friday.
Well, we are back and trying to work to get Ken Erickson on live here. Tom will let me know when he zooms in. Here's the deal. Maui has problems, okay? The island of Maui, the county of Maui, folks don't trust their government. Folks are frustrating with warnings and dispatch and mitigation, not just of fires, of emergencies there, feeling that the government let them down.
Okay.
And it sounds like we have Ken Erickson with us in Maui. Ken, I just looked, 111 fatalities. Lahaina clearly devastated, razed with a Z, and burned down. What's the feeling? You live in Maui. You don't live in Lahaina, thank God. But, I'm looking at New York Times. I'm looking at Wall Street Journal. Headlines are like, the Bissen administration, they failed to warn people. Water ran out of the hydrants and the reservoirs. The communication systems failed. The governor is making sure that people don't sneak in to buy land, saying, land's cheap because it was burned down near the ocean. Is there a bunch of mistrust going around on the island, or for residents, is it just kind of hunkering down to repair Lahaina?
Well, local residents are obviously devastated and clearly angry. Many of them have lost family members. The sad news is that as of yesterday, the list of missing people is about 1,300 people.
Oh, my God. So 111 dead for sure, but there's over 1,000 missing. I did not realize that.
Yeah. And the bad news is communications were restored a couple days ago. Many of those 1,300 are undoubtedly dead. The fire burned so hot that they're not finding bodies, and it burns so hot that even teeth don't survive that.
Jeez.
So what's going to happen as time goes on is those people, even though communications have been restored and even though there's rescue personnel in the area, will just never be found.
Not to be graphic or macabre, but I mean, your point is when your body burns to cinders and ash and wind comes and blows it away, and even teeth are gone. Your point is, how do you locate that person? If I'm fried to that degree, I'm sorry to be graphic, but I mean, you're not going to find them ever. That's horrible.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And sadly, the schools were closed in the mornings because of the fires, and the kids many of them went home. And many of those 1,300 were kids.
Oh, my God. And the way I read the fireworks, so it came down from above Lahaina, came into Lahaina, and it just spread like domino effect. Is that how you take it as well?
Yeah.
And people didn't realize how quickly, kind of like an earthquake where, ground opens up like 1964, people didn't have time to react. When I read that people were jumping into the ocean, by the way, Ken's a longtime friend, longtime legislative aide, retired from Alaska, webmaster. We're family friends, so my family, Grayson and Lila and I, visited Ken and had dinner with him, and we were there in Maui recreating. And you talked about, how cohesive the community is. You don't live in Lahaina. After we met with you, we went to Lahaina the next day, so we're very familiar. But when I read that people were jumping into the ocean, admittedly, I was like, oh, give me a break. Well, then after the fact, now that the news out about the carnage, I'm thinking, good God, now I see why.
Yeah. I read in local media that the Coast Guard rescued roughly 50 of the people who jumped into the ocean there. So it wasn't a huge number of people, but the waters around Maui are pretty warm. You can stay there for a while, but if you're there for hours and hours, you start losing body heat.
Now, you're a kite boarder, right? Yeah, I mean, you before you were in government, you owned a pet store. We've talked about this. You're expert in fish. You've owned a boat, moored and sewered. You moved to Maui. You're retired. You're a kite boarder. You're a kite surfer. What about sharks? I mean, people weren't like jumping into the water and swimming a mile out, right? I mean, they were close to shore.
They stayed pretty close to shore. A lot of them were sheltering behind the breakwater of Lahaina Harbor, which is a tiny little harbor, roughly the size of Whittier Harbor. So the winds were blowing from the mountains out to sea. There was a hurricane about 400, 500 miles offshore. So the winds were high, but not that terribly high. They were probably 30 or 40 miles per hour. But when the fire started, it started getting going good. It started making its own weather, and that added to the wind that's blowing from mountains.
Well, and Maui's small. Maui's small, Ken. I mean, where do you live, if I may? You're not in Lahaina. I remember we didn't go to your house. We had dinner instead near your home. But what community do you live in?
I live in Wailuku. That's in central Maui.
Yep. And so how are you affected by the fire? It's kind of like a volcano. I assume the ash, plumes, smokes, you were bothered to some degree, weren't you?
Actually, no.
Really?
I didn't even realize that. So there was no smoke. Couldn't see the fire, but I wasn't outside. I didn't even realize it was, a fire until later that, kind of mid-evening. I happened to notice.
Could the same be said for
media.
folks in Kihei? Remember, when my family stayed at a hotel in Kihei. Could it be said for where the cruise ships come in? So because of the mountain there, the observatory, that area of the mountain range in small Maui, there are still mountains. So that blocked you, didn't it?
It did. The weather pattern that happens over the island just made it so the smoke and ash didn't hit Wailuku at all. There was a fire that happened in northeast portion of.
Yep, I read about
Kihei.
that too. Yep.
That was a smaller fire and wasn't quite as fast moving. Homes burned. I've not heard of any deaths from there. If the fire's there was a third one in Kula, which is a neighborhood that's partly up Haleakala Mountain. That's the big, gigantic lava dome that's in the middle of the island. That fire's not even out yet. That's only like 60%.
And like places like Hana, I mean, they probably have no clue because the island's it's large enough that there wouldn't. Yeah. Before we go to a break, we have one more segment with Ken Erickson talking, and I'm so appreciative because it's super early. They're 2 hours earlier than Alaska. But real quick, do you think the government let people down, or do you not have enough information yet to talk about the county administration, which is new? I supported Victorino, the incumbent. Judge Bissen wins. He's more conservative. Some people are blaming his administration and the county government for some of this beyond the electric company.
I think catastrophes happen, and it's difficult to plan for every eventuality.
Yeah.
We can talk more after.
No, that makes sense. You hear the music. Ken Erickson, longtime Alaskan, now living in Maui, discussing what happened with the Lahaina fire, all the fatalities, the carnage, the devastation. He's quite sad. He's going to give you some ways that you can donate and help some trusted recipient nonprofits. Stay with us. Good morning. Tom Anderson Show.
This is the Tom Anderson Show, broadcasting live from the KVNT studios, 7 to 9 a.m., Monday through Friday.
Continuing our conversation, very somber discussion with Ken Erickson, longtime Alaskan, retired from the Alaska State Legislature, webmaster, political, at one point operative, helping candidates, certainly in the know on governance and policy. He's not active that I'm aware of, and he can speak to that in Maui, but he certainly reads the paper and is engaged. He does not live, thank God, in Lahaina, but has given us kind of an optic on what happened, the carnage there. Can I read articles headlined, Maui Battles Mistrust Over Emergency Response? Mayor Bissen defends himself, saying, we didn't turn on the warning sirens for a reason. Here's another headline, The Guardian out of UK. Maui wildfires expose rift over island tourism. We're more vulnerable than anyone admits, one official said. Here's another one. After wildfires, Hawaii vows to protect Maui landowners from pressure to sell. So, I mean, boy, you guys are in the news globally, certainly in America as our 50th state. So, returning to the question, is there a blame to be labeled to the current administration? I know that Bissen inherited, I was a supporter of Victorino, and we worked with him. Obviously, he has staff still there. There are emergency responders and groups. You know, we heard about hydrants empty and sirens not being warned. I do think you have to place some blame on the county government. It's a county, just so people understand. Molokai, Lanai, Maui, it's all a big county infrastructure there. I would think you give some blame to Mayor Bissen, wouldn't you?
Well, yeah, there's some blame to be spread around. The fact that the tsunami alarms weren't turned on, that's a really angry point of contention with people from Lahaina. At least at that point, they would have known that something was going on. In addition, the electrical company that serves the Lahaina area is in the process of being sued. I know of at least 2 lawsuits, class action lawsuits, that have been announced publicly.
Sure.
And what they could have done is turn the electrical off when the high winds were coming on. Apparently, that's a procedure that's done in California nowadays. After the big fire that happened there a few years ago. Yeah, there was a press conference where I think it was the emergency services manager of Maui was announcing, the actions that he took, and people who attended that press conference were extremely angry with him and
sure
sort of yelling at him.
Well, it says here, I'm reading in an article, Maui County Emergency Management Agency Administrator Herman Andaya defended his decision. During the Wednesday conference this week, he discussed what happened. He was asked if he regretted making the decision to not sound the warning sirens that would have alerted the town of Lahaina about the fires. And he says no. So, well, let's talk about how we can help. You sent me a text before you agreed to interview, and I'll read from it. You said, for those flush with cash, someone with money that's willing to help, you'd recommend donating to the Maui Food Bank, Maui Strong Foundation, Maui Humane Society, and the Maui United Way. And you noted that they all run thoughtful, local, trusting, transparent charities. You also said those planning to vacation in Maui should really stay away for a month or two or longer and kind of wait to hear what the governor, Josh Green, and what Maui County says, because this is not a good time to go. And then you also recommended direct cash donations to local families, setting up GoFundMe accounts if you can vet them to some degree. But you said, caution there because you don't want to fly by night. But some of them, you can read the biography, you can read the pitch, and it seems legit. And then finally, you said you might consider the Red Cross, which has, you noted, high management costs, or Salvation Army. And so, there's a religious-centric element of that. But I think those are all good recommendations.
Yeah, I do have further thoughts on the not come idea. So Maui's economy is pretty much totally vacation visitor based.
So tourism centric.
Yeah, absolutely tourist centric. So it's a little like Juneau, Alaska in that respect.
Sure. So what I hear you saying is the poor tourists there, donate to them. I'm just kidding. No, that's I would assume you don't want them there. You noted that in your text to me that this is not. And by the way, the state of Hawaii, even airlines and hotels, the Hotel Motel Lodging Association, I'm a member of that through Optima. And full disclosure, and Ken and I work together. We contract with Ken for all sorts of things because he's brilliant. Even those groups, those trade associations are not saying, hey, come on to Maui. Why would someone say that? Certainly not now.
Well, let me expand a little bit on that. Certainly the people in Lahaina and then the affected hotel complexes north of Lahaina, so like Napili and Kaanapali,
sure.
Those hotels have opened their services to many of the displaced families. So, you don't want to book a vacation to the Kaanapali area.
Because you're taken from local residents that lost their home, possibly. No, I agreed. By the way, I know you cannot speak for hotels and corporations, but I would assume they would not take new reservations, for instance, late August, early September. I would think they'd say, no, we're not taking any, which hurts their bottom line, but it's the right thing to do. I know you can't speak to that, but I would assume they're not in Lahaina.
I'm gonna assume you're correct there. But the bottom line is many of the displaced, lost their jobs, and they still need jobs. So roughly half of Maui. So the Kihei area, the Makawao, Wailea, which is south of Kihei, Paia, which is a surf town kind of on the north shore of Maui. Those places were unaffected. They still have hotels, and the bars and the hotels
need the business,
need
of course. Well, yeah, see, even though I'm repeating headlines and articles and messaging, but I'm not suggesting don't visit, because I'm on the side of business. I'm on the side of hotels. I'm a member of the the Lodging Trade Association there. So, and I encourage people to join that and support them. We're going to make a YouTube video of this, and we have a Facebook page, Maui County News. We'll post this YouTube video with the interview with Ken Erickson, and we'll put in the link all the charities and the societies and the centers where you can support and help. We'll post those. I'll research it and we'll put the links there. But Ken, what else would you say in conclusion? We'll get you back in the future, but other than prayers and heartfelt thoughts for those for those missing and the families expecting an answer, probably won't get one. What else would you conclude beyond tourism? Just that it's a devastating fact of life, thanks to Mother Nature, sadly?
You can't prepare for every catastrophe that might possibly happen. This was a true series of maybe bad decisions and bad things that happened.
It's true.
So yeah.
Well, and there's hope, right? Won't they? Isn't the moral of it all? Hawaiians are tough. Maui residents and indigenous people like you that move there, you guys are tough. You're forthright. You're going to rebuild, and Lahaina will be back at some point. I think that's also the spirit of this. Ken, thanks for your time, brother. We'll have a YouTube video with the links for donations thanks to you. So thank you, Ken.
Okay, take care.
You betcha. Folks, you can follow us, TomAndersonShow.com, like our Facebook page, YouTube video coming. Hey, prayers for Hawaii and Maui. God bless.